I rented the newspaper press before dawn. What the ink refused to forget. I didn't rent the press because I'm sentimental about headlines. I rented it because ink keeps score in ways people pretend memory will handle for them later. The Chronicle squats by the river like a ship that never learned to float. Night shift keeps the loading dock lit and the big web presses idling, waiting for a verdict from editors who seem to sleep only in guilt. I know the maintenance chief, Val, from a winter when a bearing seized and I stood there with a flashlight and stubbornness until we persuaded the machine to forgive us. When I texted just before midnight, she called back in the flat, forgiving voice of a person who believes in both deadlines and people. 1 hour, she said. Top-level catwalk is yours. Keep off the safety rails. Leave the playroom cleaner than you found it. And no trials after 2. She laughed the laugh you reserve for rules that earned their place with blood. At 11:39 p.m., my phone delivered the sentence our marriage can type asleep. Loadout ran late, quick debrief became a drink, might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Leela doesn't lie, she arranges. She can convince donors they adore libraries and volunteers they don't mind lifting. For a year we've been excellent at mercy, thrifty with appetite, heroic in logistics. The person who made that dangerous is the operations lead with gaffer in his tote and shoulders that turn chaos into choreography. His name is Owen, predictable in every way except the way rooms behave near him. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women, which makes cities safe and husbands honest or crazy. Inside, the press floor breathed like a domesticated animal that could kill you by accident. The drums were quiet, plates stacked, pallets waiting for stories. I climbed the metal stairs to the catwalk where heat lifts to think about its options. You can see everything from up there. The quiet loading dock, the sea of newsprint, the control panels with their lights like patient, reasonable stars. I set 2 paper cups on the rail beside a yellow strobe nobody had turned on in years, and waited with a heart that had learned caution as a hobby. They came through the side door at 12:06, badge buzz, heavy hinge, the small echo of people who know they're somewhere they shouldn't be. Leela first, hair pinned in the shape competence requires, mouth still carrying the last joke she didn't say because budgets. Owen a pace behind, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip, eyes doing the math of exits men who lift after midnight learn the way other people learn operas. He saw me first. Men like him always do. It's their living. He lifted 2 fingers, stood just inside the painted line, and turned his gaze to the steel stair as if he'd been assigned to catalog every bolt. Really, Leela said, looking up at the catwalk, you rented the press. I wanted a room where evidence arrives in bundles, I said. Say it where machines can refuse to be impressed. Owen kept his hands visible. Need me? He asked her, not me. I need you exactly there, she said, pointing to the yellow stripe beyond which forklifts begin having opinions. If I want less distance, I'll use proper nouns. He obeyed. Good men do. It's half what keeps them good and half what makes them intolerable. I led Leela up the narrow stairs. She climbed like a person who doesn't let her shins make decisions for her. From the catwalk, the press bed below looked like a metal cathedral patient with human mistakes. The plateroom door stood open, light spilling onto the floor like an invitation misaddressed but correct. Say it, I told her. In an elevator, she said, because the cosmos is lazy and likes old sets. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him, quick, mint, rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock and asked me to be the adult I pretend I am on paperwork. I wanted to be furious. I was relieved. Tonight I almost followed the part of me that prefers doors to mirrors. I didn't. I'm here. Do you want me to hit him? I asked. and heard how even asking was me auditioning for a role I couldn't play well. "I want you to choose me," she said, "not rescue appetite." The press hummed like an animal dreaming about a field. Air smelled of solvent and paper, and truths that wipe off your hands but not your thoughts. I put my hand at the back of her neck and pressed my thumb into the notch I reserve for emergencies that ought to be pleasures. Her eyes closed like a vote counted aloud. I kissed her. Jurisdiction, not apology. She answered like a woman who had been a plan all day and wanted 4 minutes of weather. My other hand slid along her ribs to the elastic that reminds you the world exists. I stopped, because I prefer the man I wake up as to the one I'd be if we confused evidence with theater. She took my lower lip between her teeth, then laughed into my cheek with the laugh that has walked me through winters. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That's a budget," she said. "We can live on that." A forklift beeped at nobody practicing. Somewhere a compressor woke up to ask if we meant it. I guided her into the plateroom, aluminum sheets leaning like careful arguments, a light table humming in the register of good faith. On the table lay a mock-up for tomorrow, a playground rebuild, a city council that had remembered its job, the weather guessing at better. I switched the viewing lamp to low. The surface glowed like a confession that had decided to be constructive. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said. "Not only when you're frightened, you'll be easier to love in other lighting." "I am inviting you," she said. "Now." I handed her a wax pencil from the edge of the table. She traced a circle around a photo of volunteers lifting a beam, their faces plain with the dignity of weight. "This," she said. "Stand here, right arm under, lift." "Gladly," I said, and meant it in more than one room. From the doorway, Owen cleared his throat in the polite key. "Loadin' at 9, he said, to the floor, to the air, to nobody who needed convincing. "The van wants 4 backs and 0 speeches." "I'll bring coffee," I said, which meant 3 different kinds of thank you and also an admission of restraint. He nodded once without moving off his stripe. The man has built a career on being exactly where a room requires and nowhere else. I clicked the press light to demo. The cylinders groaned into readiness, belts whispering, registers ticking their careful arithmetic. We stood at the catwalk rail and watched the web feed begin without paper, only habit. The ghost of women and men who'd made a living on deadlines strode through the noise and didn't ask our names. "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," Leela said. "I almost turned our kitchen into a courtroom," I said. "Exhibits A through Z, I almost weaponized accuracy because accuracy looks like love when love is tired. I sat at a motel parking lot with a key I never used and laughed the idea out of my mouth until it recognized me again." "I almost sent you proof," she said. "Screenshots times. I almost asked you to do math on my behalf. Then I deleted drafts and walked up a staircase that smelled like newsprint because newsprint is dumb and brave and understands regret." We stood like citizens on a balcony that had survived better debates than ours. The press idled. The heat lifted our hair like a rumor. I took her wrist and turned it up under the catwalk light. "Do something foolish," she said, "but survivable." I wrote on her skin, small letters, a headline nobody would print: "Choose before the elevator does." She took the pencil and wrote on the inside of my forearm: "Appetite, not theater." I kissed the ink dry, a ceremony that demanded no witnesses and invited none. We didn't undress. We didn't audition for folklore. We made heat that could walk down 4 flights of steel stairs and pay for coffee without borrowing grace. Down on the floor, a stack of blank broadsheets waited to be told what tomorrow was. The thought had the mercy of comic relief, all that emptiness we call optimism. We walked the catwalk to the far side, where the view gives you lines you can pretend are a kind of music. Leela leaned on the rail and looked at the press like a complicated child she was ready to love. "I miss wanting things publicly," she said. "I want our name to mean appetite again, not just compliance." "Join me at the rail in daylight," I said. "Name the thing and I'll sign the requisition." She laughed head back enough to make me believe in gravity. "Bring the pen," she said, "and stop calling your hands responsible." We let silence earn its keep. She told me small truths, how her collarbone stiffens when a room needs her to be a system, how she wants my mouth in a lobby where the fluorescent lights are rude, how competence tastes better when chased with undignified laughter. I told her small truths, how I count stair treads when I'm scared, how I love the sound of tape peeling off a finished box, how I am tired of being good and ready to be generous. At 12:46, Val's voice crackled from the floor. 10-minute test spin, papers on. If you're on the walk, hold onto something that forgives you. We held the rail because we wanted to be forgiven. The press came alive like a city remembering its address. Paper threaded itself through rollers with the concentration of a dancer. Ink kissed metal. The first sheets tore themselves free, only slightly crooked, the way first attempts are legally required to be. The smell hit us, warm, wrong, wonderful. Below, a boy in ear protection grinned at the web like he had just watched evidence pour into the world in strips. "Look," Leela said, and I did, because advice is easier in the imperative. They decided what tomorrow is, and the machine believed them. "Then let's do the same," I said. "Choose a sentence we can live inside." She turned, pressed her forehead to mine, and gave me consent uglier and more beautiful than any vow. "Show up when the fluorescent lights are rude. Put your hand at the back of my neck in daylight. Argue with me about nothing at 10:30 on purpose. And stop pretending appetite is an emergency." "Yes," I said. "And call me when the elevator wants a vote. Let me carry the stupid end of things. Forgive me forward when I don't deserve it, and tell me to sleep before we try to win." We kissed again, brief and competent, a contract with both our names spelled correctly. Downstairs, the first stack rifled itself into respectability. Owen finally checked his watch, because 9 a.m. comes at the same speed for saints and cowards. We shut the demo down and returned the plateroom to tidy. I wiped a smear of ink off her cheek with my thumb and left a cleaner smudge because the universe has a sense of humor. We clanked down the stairs, metal confessing to weight. Owen held the door like scenery that had earned a line. "Coffee at 9, he said. "Coffee at 9, I said. "Thank you for being the adult in the elevator." "Thank you for renting a room that refuses to lie," he said, and walked toward morning with the gait of a man who knows how to leave his hands out of the story. Outside, the river argued with its own reflection. We stood beside the loading dock under a light that had decided not to flicker. She touched my wrist, daylight legal, and the air changed its mind about temperature. We didn't make more promises than we could carry. We counted how many stairs back to the street and decided to take them like citizens. At 9, the community center smelled like lemon spelling competence. Owen stacked tables with the modest inevitability that teaches gravity manners. I carried the other end and let sunlight on my neck. Leela moved through the room with a clipboard, and a mouth volunteers obey without hatting themselves. When she passed me, she tapped the ink on my forearm with 2 fingers, and the morning chose us without requiring a speech. During break, I set a paper cup near Owen's elbow. "You stood your ground," I said. "Habit," he said, "and employment." He looked at the door the way decent men look at exits. We nodded once, treaty signed with caffeine and breath. We loaded the van without heroics. Tape squealed, lists exhaled. Someone laughed at nothing a human ear would quote later. Gravity agreed to be negotiated for another day. We didn't tell anyone about the press. We taped a torn slug of headline, "Indoor Playground REOPENS," on the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the house auditions for courtroom, we walk past the Chronicle and put our palms to the wall like penitents with better priorities. Sometimes she texts come and mean stand next to me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we invite a friend who has mistaken proof for love and take them to the fence behind the loading dock so they can smell paper deciding to be tomorrow. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Ink is a witness that stains you lightly and leaves its mark anyway. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossip part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we tell it this. We rented a machine that makes promises into pages, kissed where the floor doesn't forgive, wrote a headline on skin where a wash won't forget it, and walked out before 2 because that's the law now. No trials after 2. Choose before the elevator does, and leave the plateroom cleaner than you found it so tomorrow has somewhere decent to land.